In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to make a clay project using slab template option number 1, which is just a cylinder. So before you begin, make sure that you have all of your supplies and materials at your table ready to go. You want to have your clay, you need to have your cloth or towel, make sure you have 2 of the wooden slab guides, you need a rolling pin, you need your plastic makeshift clay tools, just plastic flatware. And then you also want to have your template. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to make sure that I just roll the clay a little bit so that it is wide enough for my piece. I always start with my biggest pieces just because I think it's easiest to roll a slab out and cut my biggest pieces when I have the most amount of clay. So I'm going to start with the side piece for this cylinder. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to just roll my clay a little bit until my clay is wide enough that this template is definitely going to fit. Okay, so notice how when I put this, I definitely have a little bit of extra on either side. Then I'm going to take my clay and I'm going to flip it. Anytime you pick your clay up, always flip it over. This will help make sure that the clay doesn't stick to the towel as you're rolling it out. I'm going to readjust my slab guides, make sure that my rolling pin fits evenly on those. And I'm going to start rolling this slab out until it is long enough that that side piece will fit. So you're going to have to stand over your clay, push down rather firmly as you're rolling. And I think it's a little bit easier to kind of start towards the bottom and then push up and away from myself with the rolling pin. I have a little bit easier time moving the clay and flattening the clay when I roll it like that. Now, don't worry about this texture that's on your clay as you roll it out and flip it. As you build your piece and roll it out, that will start to smooth out and go away. Now, once I have rolled out this slab and it's plenty big enough to fit my side piece on, I'm just going to lay that down flat on the slab. Take your knife, and the first thing I like to do is just kind of not necessarily cut all the way through, but trace around and just kind of incise a line to begin with on all 4 sides. Since I'm cutting against a sheet of paper, it's kind of easy to go off just a little bit and not get it perfectly even. So if that happens, you can go through kind of like I'm doing here, smooth it back out, lay that down, and then you can go back to tracing around. And then cut your piece out. Once I have my side piece cut out, peel it off of your towel and set it over to the side on your table. And if you have some clay left over that's big enough for your circle piece, like this was some of the extra clay that I cut off the top, I'm going to continue to roll it until it's the same thickness as my slab guides. And then you want to lay your base on. And again, because I'm cutting out a circle, circles are usually a little bit trickier to cut out and cut nicely. I'm just going to go around and just incise a line. And I'm actually going to spin this a little bit and then trace around. Don't worry if you don't get your circle cut out perfectly round, because once we attach and connect the wall to the base, you'll be able to go through and smooth it out and make it look a little bit nicer. Now, as soon as I'm done rolling out my slabs and cutting out all of my pieces, get rid of your towel. You don't need it anymore, and it will dry your clay out more than what you would like. Now, it doesn't matter which side you use as your base. I'm going to use kind of the little texture side up so that the bottom is nice and smooth. And then you're going to use your fork. You're going to go all the way around the bottom and just scratch up a nice little border to score the clay. After I score the bottom, I'll put the texture side on the inside this time. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to score the bottom edge that's going to attach to my base. Now, once you get finished doing this and you get to this step, make sure you raise your hand and let me know, because I will have all of the slip with me in a small container, and I'll bring that around and I'll scoop out a small amount for you at your workstation for you to use. So you're going to take your slip and you are going to dab your slip all the way around on this bottom side. So remember, we want to dab it on. You don't want to kind of smooth that, because we don't want to smooth out the lines that you've scored. And then I'm going to flip this and put my scored edges next to my scored edges. Now, when I get to this point, okay, the walls are cut slightly thicker and bigger. Okay, and so this is actually a good kind of problem to have, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my knife and I'm going to cut through both of these sides, and I'm going to cut this down at an angle all the way from top to bottom. So the reason I want to cut this at an angle is because now, once I set this down here, this little seam where these come together will come together a lot nicer. So before you attach and smooth that together, score both of these sides with your fork. Dab on some more slip. And then pinch that together firmly. So the last step is, now you want to go through and you want to smooth out all of those seams where that was joined and connected together. So on the sides here, I'm going to put one hand on the inside, and then you can use your spoon for this or your hands. But the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of use the end of the spoon and smooth that together. So I'm just going to pull the clay from that seam that overlaps on top. And then after I've kind of joined that with the spoon, you can take your finger in here and smooth that out. I'm going to do the same thing around the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to use my spoon and drag that clay either up or down, depending on which side overlaps the most. And you want to work all the way around, connecting and smoothing this. Now don't worry about if your little cylinder gets kind of, I don't know, if it tends to move and it doesn't look perfectly circular. Once you get all of this connected and smooth, then you can go through and clean it up and make it look nice. So from here, your hands are going to be a much better tool to use to smooth that out. But you can lay it flat, but go around and smooth that until you are satisfied with how nice that looks. Okay, so continue that process all the way around. And then you also want to make sure before you're done, you go in and connect and smooth together the inside seam. So all the way down, smooth that. If you don't like the texture that's on the towel, you can use your hands or a damp paper towel and go through and smooth all that out. And at this point, you are ready to decorate your project.